Nothing can stop me, so be it I so the people of the land, getting on why in the Sumoleya, we are still forming, Lamira people come together, so we have everyone they come together, we will have
Thank you so much. We're happy to come back. Thank you so much, Music Madrid. Can we give it up for Music Madrid? Thank you. Dialogue on anti-corruption. Today, Thursday, September 14, here at the Boulevard Palace at about this time. The Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, Center, with funding from the Embassy of Sweden in Liberia and the Open Society Initiative for West Africa, USIWA, hosts a one-day dialogue on anti-corruption with presidential candidates. The objectives of this one-day dialogue to promote dialogue and harmony amongst presidential candidates, to contribute to an issue-focused election by highlighting issues of corruption and governance, to foster constructive candidate-voter engagement, to understand candidates' plans to tackle corruption and bad governance, and to gauge candidates' commitment to fight corruption and promote integrity. I am Denise Nipson, your Master of Ceremony. To begin with our agenda or activity, I'd like to cite this quote from Robert Zoellick that says, "Corruption is a cancer that steals from the poor, eats away at governance and moral fiber, and destroys trust." At this time, we will have invocation, and I will invite a volunteer who will do for us our invocation.
We have one red man.
Okay, thank you.
Let us pray. Our Lord and our God, we thank you for the opportunity to come and discuss the well-being of your children, the children of Liberia, the people of Liberia. Our Father, we ask that as we discuss, oh Lord, that you will take preeminence, that everything we see and do here will be to the glory of your name. May Liberia rise above where she is today. May Liberia truly achieve sustainable development. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you you so much. When the history of Liberia is being read and the issue of corruption is being talked about, one of those names or institution that will be mentioned is Cllr. It's an institution that's been around for many years now, fighting corruption in Liberia, promoting transparency and accountability. At this time, I will invite the Executive Director, Mr. Anderson Emane, for welcome remarks.
Thank you, Dennis. Our distinguished candidates, our donor and partners here present, government officials, civil society leaders, our media partners, development partners, citizens of Liberia, youths, women, traditional leaders, etc. I'm happy to be here to welcome all of you to this very important event. The speaker after me will talk about why we're here in terms of providing or giving the overview of this event. But what I've come to do is to say to you a very big thank you, especially to our candidates for honoring our invitation to be here. We wrote as many candidates as possible. Some choose to stay away for different reasons, but you chose to be here despite your basic schedules. So let's give a hand of applause for our candidates. Thank you for honoring our invitation to be a part of this conversation. To our donor, the Swedish government, that is playing a very key role in the life of Cllr and many civil society organizations in Liberia. We say thank you to you for all that you're doing for Liberia, especially civil society. The Open Society Initiative for West Africa is not here present, but is one of the donors that is supporting this initiative. To all of you who've come to participate and meaningfully contribute to this dialogue, we say thank you for and on behalf of the Board of Directors of Cllr, headed by Councillor T. Dibadi Warner and his colleagues, as well as the secretarial staff of Cllr. We say to you, welcome, feel free, participate. Let's engage with our candidates who are vying for the position of the Liberian presidency. Thank you so much. You are wholeheartedly welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayman, the Executive Director of Cllr. At this time, we'll have the overview of the program. And like Brigham Young says, when you educate a woman, you educate a generation. I want to call Ikia P. PhD. She will come to do for us our overview of program. Please put your hands together for her as she comes in.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, our donor partners, the media, and our aspirants, we say thank you so much for honoring this program. We are very grateful. Our executive directors have said it all. And why are we here? We are all aware that Liberia is faced with many challenges, and corruption and mismanagement of the country resources have largely contributed to the underdevelopment and even conflict in Liberia, which we are all aware. with good governance and significant strides can certainly be made against corruption. And we also are aware that we will be going to the pool soon. And we are at the critical role of our democracy. Citizens across the country are gearing up, getting ready. So to ensure a post-election integrity and anti-corruption roadmap, this is effective in adequately and satisfy to address the issue concerning corruption in Liberia, the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, Center, with funding from the Embassy of Sweden in Liberia and the Open Society Initiative for West Africa. OSIWA holds a one-day dialogue on anti-corruption with presidential candidates. This is the dialogue. And the purpose of this dialogue is to promote dialogue and harmony amongst presidential candidates and to contribute to an issue-focused election by highlighting issues of corruption and governance, to foster constructive candidate-voter engagement, to understand candidates' plans to tackle corruption and bad governance, and to gain candidates' commitment to fight corruption and promote integrity. So in short, we are here to interact with our candidate aspirants. We are here to understand their role in tackling corruption, their plans about corruption in Liberia. As we all complain about corruption, what is the anti-corruption mechanism will they put in place? What do they have in their manifestos to give to the Liberian people? And based on this, we will be able to conclude and decide. So this program is a program that everyone we have time for you to ask questions, so you can jot down your questions when they are speaking and ask whatever you want to know, ask questions, and they are here to tell you what the plans are, especially when it comes to corruption, fighting corruption in Liberia. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Madam Gray, and she's the Gender and Inclusion Officer at Center. And to the part I like that she said, ask question and ask question. That's the purpose for which we are here today. At this time, we'll have remarks. We'll first begin with our partners. We have the Embassy of Sweden. Please put your hands together for them.
Thank you very much. Let me stand on the existing protocol and be very brief. We're just happy to see that our partner Cllr is organizing an issue-based discussion among presidential candidates on a very pertinent topic for contemporary Liberia. And we are here to listen. We don't have a view on political parties in Liberia, but we do support an issue-based political debate and dialogue leading up to the October 10th election. So we're wishing you a good dialogue today and in the continuous dialogues that you're arranging. So thank you very much for inviting us.
You said USAID? Anyone? Government? Okay, we will go to youth. Do we have a representation from the youth? Any of the young people that were invited to this program can come and make a remark on behalf of the group. Okay, we have someone coming up. And today we are here to talk more about accountability, that what the presidential candidates will be talking about. So like the overview, ask question, ask the hard question, and know what you want to know.
Okay. Hello. My name is Mohammed Nwakene. I'm from CIF, Center for Intellectual Freedom. However, we have to let our candidate know we are the young people in Liberia. We are the features in Liberia. Other would say, now we are in our features. And election is coming. It depends on our leader. It depends on our leader to move Liberia forward. If you have not done your work, definitely Liberia will not move forward. We are expecting you guys to be moderate and very, very moderate and be peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you. Community representative. Remark from community representative, followed by persons with disability. Do we have any here? Okay, if not so, we will invite the cultural performance of Music Madre once more.
We are one family. Our sister can go up. We are one family. Only desire you later. We are to share. Labira. Only desire you later. We are to share. Let us reconcile. Why not answer? He is the way. Let us carry one another. Let us join here to rebuild our country. Let us reconcile. Let us reconcile. Why not the answer? He is the way. Let us carry one another. Let us join here to rebuild our country. Let us reconcile. Why not in be as the way that I'm getting one another, that I'm joining here to rebuild our country, that I'm reconciled, that I'm reconciled. Why not in be as the way that I'm getting one another, that I'm joining here to rebuild our country, that I'm reconciled. We are sorry for the rule. We must respect the rule. For him all things is respect the rule. Everyone has the right to laugh. If I'm bothering him on me, for him all things respect the rule. Everyone has the right to laugh. If I'm bothering him on me, for him all things We must respect the rule for the
must respect the rights of human. At this juncture, we will have introduction of the moderators, and that will be done by me. Antonin Farcia B. Harris is a lawyer, journalist, and a lifelong activist for women's rights and against gender-based violence in Liberia. In 2022, she was awarded the International Women of Courage Award by the United States Department of State for her lifelong commitment to advancing the rights of women and girls in Liberia. She is an associate at Beyond Law Chambers. She holds a bachelor's degree in sociology, a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Liberia, and a master's degree in public administration from Cottington University. She is a fellow of the Columbia University Oral Program. Our second moderator, Gerald D. Cllr Sr. Esquire, is a program manager at the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, Sinkor, and has over 10 years of experience in the anti-corruption field. He is a lawyer, researcher, and author who has published locally and internationally, including in leading journals. He holds a Bachelor of Economics degree from the University of Liberia and a Bachelor of Laws, cum laude, from the Louis Arthur Grant School of Law, University of Liberia. He also holds a Master of Laws degree in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa from the University of Pretoria, South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, our panelists, at this time, I will invite our moderators who will do for us introduction and seating of the candidates.
Thank you very much. We are excited to be here to begin this session, to moderate this dialogue. And just to say, as our executive director mentioned earlier, we invited a number of candidates, including His Excellency President Weah, Ambassador Joe Boakai, Mr. Cummings, Dr. Clarence Monimba, and Mr. Hussein Famara. And those are absent, but we're very much appreciative of our fellow candidates for honoring our invitation to be here today. We are very excited, and we hope that we can have a very smooth sailing. Yes, so we move on to the introduction of panelists, and I'll hand over to Farcia at this point.
Good afternoon, everyone, and we are happy to be here again to talk about corruption. A lot has been said, and we all can agree how much has been done. So it's an opportunity to discuss with our candidates, people wanting to lead this nation. So we have our first panelist, who is Ambassador N. He's a standard bearer of Liberia Rebuilding Party. He has a BBA in accounting from the University of Liberia, LLB in general laws from the Louis Arthur Graham School of Law and LLM International Business Law from the Cllr University of Netherlands.
Please put your hands together for Mr. Young. Our next panelist or candidate is Madam Sarah Beslo-Yanti. She's the standard bearer of the African Liberation League. She served as Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General to Sudan and as Resident Coordinator in South Sudan. She served as UNICEF Resident Coordinator in the Republic of Nepal. And she served as, and this is a very important disclosure, as a board member of the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia. And she holds a master's degree in public administration and is a globally accredited partnership broker of the Partnership Broker Association in the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam.
Our next panelist is candidate Simeon Fremont. He's the standard bearer of the Movement for Progressive Change. Simeon Fremont runs the Consolidated Group Incorporated, CGR, providing DSTV services in Liberia and operating the vast water company. You are welcome, sir.
Our next candidate is Dr. Joshua Turner. He is the standard bearer of the New Liberia Party and Chief Executive Officer at Rebuild Liberia. He's also a man of God, the General Overseer and founder of Champion Ministries International. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science from the African Methodist Episcopal University, a Master of Arts degree in International Relations from the Liverpool John Moores University in the United Kingdom, and a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Epistemology from the Calicut University in Kerala State, South India. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Turner.
And our next panelist is Councillor Tiawan Saye Gongloe, my professor. For disclosure. And he got admitted to the Mozzarella Bar as attorney at law in 1988, the Supreme Court Bar as counselor at law in 1994. He served from 2019 to 2021 as the president of the Liberia National Bar Association. He's a life member and governing board of the African Bar Association, president of the former Minister of Labor, Republic of Liberia, and former Solicitor General of the Republic of Liberia. Ladies and gentlemen, our panelists and candidates.
So we'll move into this session, which is the engagement with candidates. And I will allow Fasia to just tell us a bit of what to expect from the candidates, how many minutes to answer. There's a bit of rules.
So this is a dialogue, healthy one. We ask each of the candidates to kindly use 3 minutes. So please respond to a question that will be posed to you, and kindly allow the rules of dialogue to hold, respect each other's views. It is not a debate, confrontational one. We will all be allowed to ask questions at some point, but basically that's what we're going to do. And we also want you to speak and know that the audience also appreciate your being here, and let's have a friendly exchange.
And just to add, because we're discussing anti-corruption, we have divided our questions into different sections. So we have the national budget, we have audit, and we have investigation and prosecution. So we'll now begin, and Fasia will engage our panelists on the question.
So we want to know by show of hand if you all have declared your access to the National Elections Commission. And the access accurate, and if you verify as such, we would like to give you 15 seconds. If you want to say more than a yes or so, but
they can be verified. It's easy. The documents are there.
Documents in, and then ask for just a word of yes, can be verified. If we have to verify, then we know that your statement is.
Yes, they can be verified. That's right.
Yes, my access can be verified.
Yeah, we just fill the asset form, but I think the asset form itself creates an opportunity for theft, corruption to be facilitated, and I think it could have a better structure could be put in place.
I also agree with the form, and I can say that what I've submitted has been verified, can be verified, but also since then I've had access during my retirement as well. So when I assume office, I will have to do an additional declaration.
After I verify.
Thank you. So, Councillor Yofi, our first question is for you. The budget has been used as a tool to officialize corruption. For instance, private facilities owned by legislators receive public funds through the budget, and money spent for public facilities gets diverted. In only 2 years, over $7 million United States dollars have been appropriated to the national legislature under questionable manner of legislative engagement and publicity. How would your administration safeguard the budget process to ensure that it is not used as an instrument for corruption?
Thank you very much. To begin with, corruption is a major category that is eating up the fabric of the nation. If we can control corruption in the nation, we stand a better chance of moving our country forward. How will we control our budget to ensure that corruptible activities are not practiced? First and foremost, we are going to operate an open budget initiative. Not only will our budget be open, but we are going to have monitoring mechanism put in place. What we observed in the past, we see some collaboration in the field of corruptible acts between the executive and the legislative branch. That is to say, there is an agreement. We in the executive, we put in certain amount for our own enhancement. The legislators will raise no point. And what they put into the budget for themselves, we too raise no point. And we see a collaborative effort to corrupt the Liberian people resources. Under the Liberian Rebellion Party, that's never going to happen, because we are going to operate an open budget. We are going to have monitoring facility put into place. That is to say, we are going to have a separate committee that is going to monitor the budget. So, because what we see happening, although it is by law that the executive produces the budget, the legislature then allocates. But nothing is wrong for us to come up with a bill wherein the executive and the legislative branch can agree to set up a particular committee and monitor. Because where people are not monitored, there is a high chance that corruption goes on. But when people have been monitored, it is very, very difficult. So with open budget initiative and with monitoring mechanism put into place, we are sure this kind of activity will not occur when the Liberian Rebellion Party.
Thank you. Madam Yancy, can you respond to the same question?
But I would say, in addition, in terms of the legislative engagement budget line, accountability for public services, accountability for people's access to their rights seems to have shifted from an understanding of the government's responsibility to individuals' responsibility. And legislators over time have been assumed that responsibility of opening schools and clinics and so forth in their districts and their counties because that's the expectation for re-election. And this is because of the gap in government's ability to be able to deliver the services across the country. We need to ensure that people's access to their rights to education, rights to healthcare and so forth are fulfilled by the government, by the executive branch, and the legislature plays its role oversight role and its role in lawmaking. And the duplication of efforts only hurts the Liberian people because we're shifting the accountability and responsibility inappropriately. The issue of dialogue is very important because roles and responsibilities are important. That's why we have the three branches of government as we have them. We need to uphold the constitutional provisions for the roles and responsibilities of the various branches of government.
Just as a follow-up question, Madam Yati, also Councillor Yofi, but just beginning with you since you have the mic. One of the reasons, okay, there used to be what we call, say, legislative support projects, where lawmakers will have appropriations to go and do developments in their districts. One of the reasons behind this whole appropriation, say, of the 7 billion of the lawmakers, they argue that they themselves have to be able to implement. Now, I hear you say the executive should be given the latitude to be able to implement development projects. But the lawmakers, they claim that, well, we ourselves are under pressure, and we need to be able to deliver services to our people. So how do we address that, to be able to balance to ensure that services can actually reach the constituents? Because remind you, those lawmakers are also politicians, and if the road is not going in the district, or the clinic is not going in the district, they need to do something. That's the basic argument of it. So they need some appropriation. How will you counter that?
Well, I would say we know for sure that there are partners from the private sector and others who are interested in various projects in the country where they engage legislators in the legislature in trying to have access to those places and trying to support the development initiatives, and that's fair and fine. But where we have the role of the Ministry of Health, for example, to implement access to healthcare across the country, including rural health, it cannot be taken on by the legislature. There needs to be a conversation around, the scope, the extent to which one can be involved, and the issue of compliance and standards, regulatory standards, and so forth. That needs to be part of that conversation, including the conflict of interest I mentioned. The conflict of interest where you then get into the issue of allocating funds for private institutions or institutions where you have interest by representatives and senators. That has to be addressed, and it cannot be addressed appropriately if you have that conflict of interest. So we need to be implementing a code of conduct and ensuring that we abide by it across the government.
Thank you. And we go back to Councillor Yofi on a question of open budget initiative. We've heard that before. I mean, during the regime of Madam Salif, was a big billboard placed on Broad Street, and the budget was displayed. Even in this current regime, we have the budgets available to the public. Yet we still see this issue of people diverting monies to their own private facilities. So how is their own open budget going to be any different?
When we talk about open budget initiative, we want to go a little bit further by talking about total transparency and accessibility to the public. Let me give you a typical example. When people are in doubt as to how revenues are generated and expenditures are made, they raise a lot of questions. Well, when people are aware of every activity that occurs in the budget, from revenue to allocation to expenditure, are all open, placed on government website, in hard copies that people can access at any period of time. When questions are raised, there are mechanisms to respond to you immediately, and the necessary monitoring mechanisms are in place to monitor the executive, to monitor the legislative branch, and where there are discrepancies, that is to say, in the behavior of people, where corruptible activities are noted, it should right away be reported to the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission for action.
Thank you. We now move to Mr. Simeon Freeman. Mr. Freeman, it is no denying that the fight against corruption needs money. Interestingly, public integrity institutions that have the responsibility to fight corruption are significantly underfunded. I'll give you an example. In the 2023 national budget, the combined allocation to the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, just two persons in government, exceeded the allocations to entire entities such as the Public Procurement and Concession Commission, the LAITI, which is the Liberia Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, the Independent Information Commission, even the Financial Intelligence Unit or Agency. All of these institutions combined, the budget did not reach the budget of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker alone. How do we ensure the fight against corruption is very successful. How would your administration do anything differently?
So I think we're looking at the outcome and trying to fight the outcome rather than looking at the processes that enable the outcome. So just for trying to look at these institutions, the anti-corruption institutions. Let me just give you a little bit of history. Several years ago, they had a deputy minister for what's the title under the Ministry of Justice, and it was all about fighting corruption. That did not help the situation. Who appoints the anti-corruption head? Is the president. You saw the tenure that just happened. They use a legal infrastructure. So in my mind, let's look at the processes. What really is corruption? Corruption is greed. And greed will express itself when it has an opportunity. If Cellcom or Lone Star or DSTV give you an opportunity, you probably might not pay us our subscription or pay them for recharge card. But we have introduced and leveraged technology, and that has disabled your greed or whoever who even dare to have the opportunity or the thought of wanting to cheat us. So I think if you look at government, the very size of government is at the heart of corruption. 5.6 million people, 100 plus public institutions, it just don't add up. National Food Assistance Agency, we're not going anywhere with that. Commission on Small Arms, Ministry of Trust, Ministry of Information, all these institutions that add up to the whole structure that creates justification. So all of these justifications leads to outcome. And it is the outcome that you expect one institution called Anti-Corruption Commission to actually fight. So in my mind, no quantity of money allocated to them will actually correct that. Let's even take the size of Ministry of Finance as an example. I work as a waiter, as a sweeper in Ministry of Finance. I leave from the Minister of Flow. I take a document down to the controller office. I have a smartphone, thanks to technology. I can take a picture, sell the information to anybody. But if you set up a data infrastructure, whereby the minister or the Minister of Office can have access to or share information with the controller, that chain is totally eliminated. So I'm of the opinion the first step to fight corruption is to review the size of the government, review approaches to government. Let me give you another example. Vehicles. If you look at this budget, I'm looking at 2022 budget, we spent $158 million on what? They call it non-financial assets. Non-financial assets are the cars, the generators, and all those things that they buy. What was spent for recurring expenditure? $125 million. You combine the two, it can solve a lot of our economic problems. First thing I want to do is to review approaches to it. What are we doing with embassy in Sierra Leone? What are we doing with embassy in Guinea? All of these wastages that a foreign ministry justifies, $20 billion, these are processes that lead to the outcome. What I want to do firstly is to strengthen that and then leverage technology. When you leverage that, you will find out that a lot of the opportunities that have expressed themselves that we today celebrate and call corruption will be something of the past.
Yes, fine thoughts. But are you also saying that public integrity institutions are not important? Because if you say, well, you have to look at other things other than outcome, is it that public integrity institutions are not so important, so we don't need to waste our money on them? Is that your position?
They are extremely important. I'm saying, if you have a quote, let's take our current quotes, as they are currently structured with $17 million support, even though support to the EPS is $10 billion, if you were to look at the volume of cases at the court, it even overwhelms the judges. So with such a large public bureaucracy, that's why you cannot easily get corruption cases to come out of the anti-corruption institution. So if you reduce those institutions, repurpose the money and leverage technology in the administration of the government, you're going to have better outcome. Then the job of the anti-corruption institution becomes much more easier. As president, I will also review how the anti-corruption commission leadership is formed. I'm going to give more power to the Bar Association, even the Chief Justice and Associate Justices. How does it happen? The president appoints. Sometimes doesn't even consult. I'm going to make it mandatory that the Bar Association give to me names of people that can be appointed to those organizations. I will work with the Accounting Association the other different, professional bodies, so that the anti-corruption Court of Commissioners are people that come from different disciplines and are respected by the various disciplines. What it does, it makes it difficult for the president to just tender a call and get certain things done. I'm saying Liberia's biggest problem, we look more at the outcome and trying to solve the outcome rather than the processes that enable the outcome.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to Dr. Turner. Dr. Turner is basically the same question, but just to add that the excuse that is usually given in terms of not funding integrity institutions is that they're competing priorities. So if you're a president, how are you going to ensure that you build roads, build schools, and then you still support anti-corruption effort?
Okay, basically, my colleague said, when it comes to corruption in Liberia, I think it's an institutional thing. It's way beyond an individual. It has eaten into the fiber of our society that people who try to stand up against corruption appears as though they are doing something wrong, and those who try to promote corruption are those celebrated by the very fiber of our society. Now, constitutionally, Liberia has a major issue. For example, you're giving me the powers to determine my salary, my benefits, and my remunerations. Definitely, you have exposed me to greed. So, constitutionally, we need to look at that area within our constitution, because that's where the powers come from, to the House. So, we need to reverse those kind of articles within our constitution. That is the bedrock. Secondly, you place the president in a position where no matter what he does, he cannot be brought to book until he leaves power. Definitely, you have promoted corruption to the highest level. The president can do and undo, and no one can call him to book. As a matter of fact, if you look into our constitution, I had a little review of it before coming. In Article 61, the president shall be immune. Immune. That's it. From any act, no matter what it is. That's Article 61. Then it seems like a contradiction in Article 62. It said the president and the vice president shall be removed from office by impeachment for treason, bribery. You just said this guy is immune from any act. Then you came up and said he shall be removed on the basis of bribery. So Liberia's issue is holistic. I mean, it's something that we need to go to the rudiments, which has to do with our constitution. Reverse those articles in the constitution. You cannot tell me to decide my salary and expect me to apportion peanuts to myself. I said, the guys in the house, they decide their salary. So definitely they can apportion anything to themselves, and automatically under the law, it's legal. There and then you have promoted corruption.
So, yes, sorry for interrupting, but if I catch you, are you also making the point that we should embed provisions in the Constitution that support anti-corruption institutions?
Obvious. That's where it starts from. Put that in the Constitution where we can empower anti-corruption institutions to call individuals to book, whether they're in office or out of office. And that's where the empowerment starts, and that's where we will be able to curtail corruption in this country. That's it.
Thank you. We now move to Councillor Gongloe. Government entities do not account for allotments in the national budget through the submission of the expenditure or budget performance report. And they had an even report on their achievements. If you look at a recent study sampling, 62 spending entities found that 16 institutions do not provide reports of the achievements or did not provide reports in 2022 calendar year. So what would you do to make public entities accountable for the money they receive through the budget?
In the first place, governance in Liberia is not by the rule of law and not by the Constitution. There's no clear separation of powers. Today you have the legislature and executive spending. They have council seating, they have to be part of the expenditure, so the oversight responsibility is not being carried out properly because of the way our governance is being carried out. They should be making sure that budget performance reports are submitted before they pass on the next budget. That is a burden that will be placed on the president. But as president, I will make sure that there is accountability. Before I submit my next budget, I have to make sure that we have the ministers presenting the budget performance report. I want to have a result-focused governance. But I have a 10-point agenda for the 12-point prescription for combating corruption. So, one of the things that is there is that the salaries of the president, the official of the government, the three branches of the government, as well as the salaries of the civil servants should be put on the government website so that people can see. It will solve some of the problems that we are talking about in terms of first thing, I will not, as a president, approve anything called legislative engagement fund. Because again, it violates the separation of powers. It is the executive responsibility to spend money and for the legislature to oversee and question. The legislative engagement fund, when the president gave the budget, it is placed there that it cannot be audited. What public fund cannot be audited? So it's clearly meant as a slush fund, an additional fund for the lawmakers. I've got a 330,000. I've asked people, has your lawmaker here told you that they took $30,000 each for you? Because they asked me, we want you to build our public toilet, we want you to build our hand pump. And I said, your lawmaker said that when you come home, you can ask them for these things. So they put $30,000 each in the budget. They have taken it for 2 years, $60,000. Every time I went to, I was told, we don't know what you're talking about. I said, the next time they come to you for campaigning, tell them, Councillor Gongloe told us, you took $60,000 to build our kitchen, to build different things for us. So it is promoting corruption. Nothing that I should be in the budget. I would clearly promote separation of powers so that they do this. And then I have something, and I hope that all the presidential candidates will agree with me. We have to have an open governance system so the salaries are known to the employers, the people of Liberia, because Article 15C says that the people of Liberia have a right to know about the government as functionaries. That's one of the information that they should know. The next is I have quarterly lifestyle audit, so that the president lifestyle and the lifestyle of everybody who serves in the government are audited to know, Mr. President, how come you have a yacht at the Freeport called MP Gongloe? Where you got that money from? I have to answer. If I'm not doing that, the minister who just paid 5 billion after 3 months in government should tell the auditor where he got the money from. He can explain. Our auditing report, lifestyle audit report, should be immediately published even before presented to the president. And as president, I will fire everybody who is spending above his income immediately. Because the code of conduct says you cannot receive any gift above $250. So you can't tell me your friend will send you money. No way. So that is the way to stop the corruption. And once we do that, I fire you and send you, not for you to enjoy your corruption money. I send you to the LACC, they will investigate you, prosecute you, and you're found guilty. You go to jail for 5 to 10 years, depending on the amount of money. And the application of the law to take the balance of the money in the bank, to confiscate your houses, the cars, even the one you bought for girlfriends and all. And I strongly believe that when 5 ministers are in jail and their family members are suffering, every minister will discipline himself or herself. Nobody will steal again. And those who want to come to government to steal will not want government job again. That is the way to go. I have that radical approach. Thank you very much.
We ask you, Councillor Yofi, to kindly respond. How do you will you ensure that public institutions are accountable in terms of putting on their expenditure?
I hear people expanding their effort on the questions asked. But let's do this. In order to fight corruption effectively, we have to look at other activities. Usually when people steal, they don't keep the money for future expenditure. When they steal, they begin to expand the money right away. To effectively fight corruption, we need to change so many systems in government. Prosecution is not the major means of stopping corruption. Because a guy who steals most of the time has at the back of his mind, one day he may be caught. And in the event he's caught, what will he do? So most of the time, when they steal, they reserve some for future occurrences. So for example, you take him to court because he has invested $5 million. This guy probably may have reserved $1 million for future eventuality. You take him to court, all he does, take $200,000, he bribes the judge. He takes another $200,000, he bribes the juror. At the end of the day, the jurors come out for verdict, not guilty. And on our law, once the jurors come with a verdict of not guilty, you cannot prosecute that individual for the second time. Because any attempt to do so will amount to what we call double jeopardy. So what happens? He walks a free man. The best way to fight corruption is to prevent it from even occurring. And to do that, under the library building party, we have a plan to introduce what we call continual audit program. Continual audit is such that you audit people every day. As I said earlier, when people are not monitored, that's when they are prone to commit corruptible acts. But when they are being monitored, it will be very difficult. So we introduce a new system of monitoring that we call continual audit, and it works in such a way that you audit every day. So I'll give you an example. If we have people in LRA collecting people in the central bank, collecting at the same time, but you make use of artificial intelligence to install the necessary gadgets that will monitor them regularly, and you have auditors coming to monitor them at the end of the working day. So for example, he works from the morning to 3 p.m., the auditors come in and audit him there and then. If 200,000, 100,000 cannot be accounted for, and the audits are done on the spot, that money is going to come from his hand. Probably that guy may say, look, I made an error, I posted the money into the wrong account, it will be retrieved. But when you wait for 3 years, 4 years, before you come and audit, so many things have gone wrong, and even after discovering, you are not going to recover that which has been corrupted. So the best way to have accountability is number one, ensure that we have proper auditing mechanism put into place. Number two, let us do away with the archaic form of auditing that we call post-audit. Post-audit never worked in any area. Continual audit is the right way to go, because as the veteran auditor myself, I know exactly that these things don't work. So for accountability purposes, as I said, one, get rid of the archaic audit system, put in place a modernized system of auditing, continual audit, number one. Number two, make use of artificial intelligence to get our records in place, to get our monitoring facilities in place, and to ensure auditors come regularly. Why do we have auditors at the General Auditing Commission? You just sitting and doing nothing, and after 3 or 4 years, you send them to audit one ministry. You are not going to achieve anything. Let the audit be done every day. And when you do that, the accountability processes in place will be enhanced, and you prevent corruptible activity.
Thank you, Councillor Yofi. Just a reminder that the anti-corruption dialogue with the presidential candidates is live on KMTV, OK FM, ECOWAS Radio, and other media outlets. So, Chair, we heard a lot. Continuous audit, lifestyle audit, constitutional reform, visiting the processes versus outcome, dialogue on the separation of power, investment in technology. We'll now move on to questions around audit, and we already started to get some responses from there already.
Exactly, and we'll begin with.
Could I provide some clarifications?
We can start it right there. So, Madam Yanti, talking about audits, the legislature is the first branch of government, and they basically have oversight, and the law provides that the General Audit Commission, when they conduct their audit, they make reports to the legislature, and they are supposed to take some actions. Now, what is interesting here is that the legislature itself provides oversight over all agencies of government. They have not, and there's no record that since 2006 they themselves have been audited, which really begs the question. Now, if you are president, our question for you is, how will you do to ensure that these branches of government, especially the legislature, there's also no record that the judiciary has been audited by the GSC. How will we ensure that those other branches of government are audited?
The funds of the government, the funds for the Liberian people, all funds released from government must be audited. That just must happen. And I will be ensuring, as president of Liberia, I'll be ensuring that happens, because you have to build confidence that the people of Liberia feel that their monies are being used appropriately. Nobody is absolved from that. There's no impunity for audit. All public funds must be audited. And strengthening the public institutions, the public integrity institutions, is fundamental to that. And ensuring that we have those institutions functioning independently also is also critical for that. I believe that the legislature, as someone was saying earlier, the issue of the legislature taking decisions that oversteps their role and getting involved in executive functions is part of the problem. And ensuring that they have the separation of powers, but also ensuring that as president of Liberia, the authority is exercised to ensure that all funds released from government are audited without any exceptions. It's also important to state categorically that everyone vying for public office and everyone entering into public service is accountable and should be held accountable for the resources of the people. The resources going to the legislature are resources that will be used for services, for health services, for education services, and so forth. And the more we ensure that auditing is done and ensure that we learn from those audit reports and we correct the vices and we correct the errors found in the audit reports, more resources will be available to meet the needs of the people of Liberia. And lastly, let me just say, auditing is an excellent tool. And whether or not archaic or modern, I won't speak to that, but what I would say is we should all want audits. Because audits present an opportunity to learn and improve on systems, to remove leakages, and to remove in the processes those areas that cause us to spend more than we should. So we should all be embracing audit as a way of governance, embracing audit as a critical tool to ensuring accountability and transparency. And with that, I will be talking about the issue of performance-based auditing and making sure that the auditing is linked to results. Not just auditing how much money was spent, what was spent for, and the results that were to have been achieved by the funds spent, were they achieved. So it's not just financial auditing, but programmatic auditing as well, linked to results-based planning and budgeting.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, you make the point of everyone should embrace the audit. And the question is, everyone is not embracing the audit. How would you manage to ensure that the legislature embraces the audit? For example, I know there have been struggles to have internal auditors being assigned at the legislature. You talk about continual audit. The legislature has been very not welcoming to having internal auditors assigned, that even should be correcting their compliance processes. How would you manage to deal with all of these politicians at Capitol Hill?
The people who represent the people of Liberia in the legislature, they are accountable to the constituencies that they represent. Making sure that the people of Liberia are also aware and getting the citizenry involved in the fight against corruption is very important. Making sure that the people they represent know that they are not abiding by the constitutional provisions and not abiding by the legal provisions, and making sure that they know that they have resources that are not accounted for, that are intended for them. we also need to be working in partnership with the legislature. It's not one versus the other. It's working in partnership and dialoguing and ensuring that together, as the three branches of government, we're working to meet the needs of the Liberian people. This is critical. But it's very important to say, to repeat, we will ensure that audit is done on all funds of government. All public funds should be, or they must be audited. It will ensure that that happens.
Thank you. And the same question goes to you, Mr. Freeman. So if you want to piggyback on what he said, but the question will be, how would you...
I needed to provide some clarity because this is a national debate. It's on radio. The moderator in the presentation talked about $700 million over a 2 years period in the legislature. The budget doesn't say that. Over a 2 years period, about $110 billion.
So I think she was talking about the line on legislative accountability.
So the line on legislative engagement is not $700 million. It was actually about $3 million that was inserted.
People say it's 2 years.
Right. Right. 7 million. Also, I need to also clearly indicate, apparently we're talking like the government is not formed. But we have a law called the Public Financial Management Law of Liberia. We also have the Budget Law of Liberia. We also have, so the Budget Law of Liberia does not obligate government to fund an institution of government if during the process of the submission of the budget performance report, certain goals that they say it will meet, funding was provided and those goals were not met. So the government as is formed. And because it's formed, there are structures. Then you also have the internal audit agency that is also like an internal auditor for government. Then you have the general services, the general auditing agency, which is an additional auditor, like an external auditor. Then you have the anti-corruption commission. So all of these layers, which we call integrity institutions, exist. So clearly, it's not that we don't have the law and that we don't have the systems in place. So let's come strictly to the issue of the legislature. But let's first look at the problem. Give me a little bit of time. The problem at the legislature is, you know, they have this Liberia, I think, infrastructure, something was held up by this guy called City. Mr. Julius Cllr, but it basically executes legislative projects. The problem when we talk to various legislators is, if you come from an opposition party, the probability of your district being isolated or no development going on there in order to make you look ugly is very high. So that's why they came out with that concept, give me my money, I'll do my own stuff. So let's go back again, instead of looking at outcome, let's go back to the processes. How do we allocate resources? I give very valuable information. If you have a budget of about $600 million, $314 million of that budget is spent on salaries alone. That's almost 60%. You don't have much left. You also have 20% of that budget you use for debt service costs. You borrow up to $2 billion already. I hope you can take note of that and have people verify that. So you come to the other point of what is left in terms of that. There needs to be a structural approach to development, whereby we take Grand Bassa County and say, how many schools we need in Grand Bassa? How many schools we need in River G? These are at the heart of the development challenges of our country. Remember, River Stairs was actually a territory. Bankulu was part of Lofa. They said, make it a county. It will be developed. In the process, more cost, more expense was brought to bear on national government, and instead Bankulu remained underdeveloped, and you pay 2 senators $15,000 a month, that's $30,000. You add office space, that's probably another $15,000, $20,000 a month. Then the representatives that come out of there. So we're spending probably $150,000 a month just on the people that represent the county, and that money could have gone to build schools, to build health centers. That's something we're looking at the outcome rather than the processes. So now let's come back to the budget. The budget performance report is part of the PFM law. If the Ministry of Finance, in this case the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, does not submit a budget performance report, there can be no new passage. None of us have taken that to court to challenge it because the law supports that. So If you look at those kinds of processes that are not being obeyed, what the outcome will be, you're going to have continuous repetition of these different things that can actually be isolated.
Okay. Just as a follow-up, on the question of how do we get the legislature to audit it, what would be some practical recommendations?
Oh, it's simple. Very, very simple. What do you do first? The legislature, let me go back to the processes. The legislature as an institution takes its budget to the budget bureau. It used to be the budget bureau. Now they call it the budget department under the Ministry of Development Planning, since they brought the three institutions together. So the legislature takes its stuff there. So what the government can do as a first step, because there is an analyst at the budget bureau that deals with the legislature. It goes through that process, and the legislature budget is then approved by the Deputy Minister for Budget and the Ministry of Planning. I just thought to give these processes so people understand the dynamics and workings of these things. Then it's then approved by the Ministry of Finance, who then includes it in the budget, and then the budget is then submitted. That's why the budget in the beginning is called a draft budget. Then it is passed by the legislature and then crossed. At the time of the submission, the analyst and the Bureau of the Budget can require the legislature to submit that performance report to be reviewed of how previous funds were managed. So it becomes a prerequisite for your visa to be issued. If it is not met, it means the legislature have no budget. That's to begin with.
Our next question will be to both Councillor Mr. Turner, Dr. Turner, and Councillor Gongloe, starting with you. Audit reports that are sent to the National Legislature. So between 2006 and 2021, the Public Accounts Committee of the Legislature have received 234 audit reports. And following review of 45 of those reports, the legislature agreed with the GAC recommendation that some of the monies spent needed to be repaid and staff fund liable for and to be followed by prosecution. That has not really happened. So what would you do as president to ensure that audit reports are of significance and not just written documents?
Okay, let me throw light and then go ahead with the question you're asking, just to help our audience. You know, Liberia needs some policies to be introduced into our system. For example, source of funds. Probably I'm down the roadside in Monrovia and probably I got some money in my car and somebody come and probably hijack me, take my money out. He goes right to LBDI, stands on the line and puts the money into his account. That becomes his money. Other countries around the world, you don't possess money or deposit money or use money without showing the source. Where it's coming from, how you got it. I can give you a case study. I went and preached in South Africa, and some rich guy came and gave me some good money. And then I'm so excited. And then I ran straight to the Western Union and want to send $3,000 to my family in Liberia. And then the lady said to me, you cannot send this money. In fact, we want to call the police. We want to know where you got this money. And I said, I got the money from the church. They said the church don't even have the power to give you this kind of money under the laws. And that guy was a pastor from Nigeria who hosted me in South Africa. So we stayed there and we had to prove the source of fund. And because of that, they seized the money and said, we don't have the proper source. This money was cajoled out of people. Liberia needs to introduce source of fund. So that you don't just take money, spend money, use money, and then it's your money without us knowing where you got the money, how you got the money. So when we introduce something like that in the system here, where every money you take to the bank to deposit, or every money you move from one account to the other in this country has to be justified. That where you got it from. You will curtail corruption overnight. Because money will not be able to move from one account to the other except you have the source. Where is it coming from? How did you get it? What means you used to get these fundings? We need to introduce that, and that's one of the recommendations, and that's one of the things I'm going to do when I'm president in this country. I'm going to introduce source of funds. Another thing is that we look at strict laws that should bring people to book. Yeah. And we should also look at enforcement of these laws. You see, there's one thing to have the laws. Like in 2008, Madam Sally, they signed into act the anti-corruption law. But those laws are on the books. But those laws are not being enforced. So we need to create a bureau that is responsible for the enforcement of anti-corruption laws. That's another amazing recommendation that we're going to bring to the table when we are leaders in this country. Another major thing we're going to do is that all our regulatory bodies in this country, all of them, the GAC, the IAC, and all that, all of them, all the audits and anti-corruption bodies, we're going to make sure that these people are paid the best salaries. So they got no reasons to also compromise. Because if I'm going to audit you, and I see a deficit of $2 million, and my salary is $300, and then you can offer me $20,000 to close my eye, the typical Liberian will close his eyes. But when you are making a good amount that can take care of your basic need as an auditor, not an under salary, but something that is commensurable to the kind of work you do, definitely corruption will be curtailed. And we're going to pay whistleblowers in this country very good rewards. Those are some of the things that we're going to do when I'm president to curtail corruption in this country.
And then the reports?
Then, with regards to all of the reports, how are we going to make sure that these reports are adjudicated, they are implemented, and they are carried out? Look, it boils down to enforcement. That's it. It boils down to the fact that our enforcing powers are limited. And the reason why they are limited is because we don't give them constitutional powers. We use institution and give them constitutional powers. And give them the powers that they can bring these people and all perpetrators to book. Definitely, auditing reports submitted will definitely be carried out and adjudicated speedily.
Thank you. Councillor Gongloe, how do we address the situation of all of the auditing reports from the GAC keep lingering at the national legislature?
It boils down to the same thing. The lack of separation of powers. Those auditing reports you are talking about are auditing reports, many of them based on conflict of interest. We know it for a fact that there are some lawmakers, for example, that have construction companies that are implementing some of the projects that are in the budget. And the auditor report is showing that some superintendent in this county or some minister did this, but that misuse of money or the lack of accountability is linked to some wrongdoing as well. So that we need to stick by the Constitution and ensure that there is separation of powers. And to also rigorously implement the code of conduct that prohibits conflict of interest. That has not been done. We have a whole chapter in the penal law on ensuring, integrity in government, all those different things. So it's all what Doc talked about, failure, lack of political will to implement the law, to enforce the law. Because our law says, hey, there's a statutory duty to perform, and you fail to do it, this lawyer will bear me out. There are procedures. You can be compelled to do what the law requires to do that you have failed to do. So that's one of the reasons. But I think also there should be some amendment in the law controlling audits so that it doesn't have to go through that process. The question of carrying out the recommendations of the auditing commission is an executive function in my view. All of those things should be done by the executive so that the legislature monitors, oversees, and acts on it as the people's deputies in the interest of the people. The auditing report should just go, in my view, to the Minister of Justice, copy sent to the President, copy sent to the LACC, and they act on it, and they are monitored. But if you send it to the legislature, and they have to say something about it before anything happens, and many of them are involved in some of the recommendations or some of the things that are being unearthed, certainly they will not hurry up to let the recommendations be implemented. I think there should be executive, should exclusively perform executive function. And just to say a little bit about, I've been in government of all of them. Obviously, I've been minister, so I know. So, we talk about public funds. What if your labor minister, for example, you issue regulation number 17 that increases the work permit fee, and some business people don't want you to do it? They will bribe you, and not public fund directly. That bribery is not public fund, so that you don't do what you're supposed to do. That is why this continent lifestyle audit, to see how much you have in terms of assets, in terms of money in the bank, and how much you are making, what is your asset declaration, is all on the website. Then we'll now grab you and prosecute you because you cannot explain your wealth. And the code of conduct says you cannot receive a gift more than $250. That source is criminal, it cannot be disclosed. We are under the GABA that anything above $10,000 here must be, it must take the source. And so that's why I have this broom. By the time we prosecute you and we take all your money and your family members suffering, then we'll finish shipping corruption from government. And nobody who wants to be corrupt want to come in Gongloe's government because no more corruption there. Then we'll finish shipping corruption. That's the only way. There has to be openness and accountability all the time. Every 3 months we check. How you bought $100,000 Mercedes Benz and your salary 1 year does not reach $50,000? That's the way. We'll prosecute you and you will never get any government job again. We have made the law to put that anybody who has been convicted of corruption should never serve in public service until he dies. That's the way to work corruption. Me, I have a radical approach.
Thank you very much. So we'll now go to Councillor Yofi. And this brings us to the last section of outside of the engagement. And I will be on investigation and prosecution. So Councillor Yofi, in 2019, you wrote your master thesis at Cllr. And interestingly, it was on the title, The Impact of Corruption on Governance and Public. If people should desist from corruptible activities, the law must be swift and expeditious in determining the guilt or innocence of those accused. And when found guilty, they should be sentenced without delay to serve as deterrent. Now, unquote. Now the question here is, in this country, if you become president, given what you have analyzed or elaborated the problem of this country where there's no investigation and people are accused without going to court, how would you work to ensure that corruption and impunity for corruption is addressed? How do we address impunity? How do we ensure we hold people liable and accountable for corruption? How do we ensure that people are not just left accused and there's not going to court, but they just in the newspaper, oh, this person is corrupt, but then they don't have the day in court?
Before I come to that, I wanted to throw a little light on the bulk of all the reports that are piling up and no action is being taken. Because there was serious danger in that, because there is something in our law called statute of limitation. And under our law, when you know of a theft or of a crime that has been committed, the time you got to know the commission of the crime, then the statute of limitation begins to run against you. For certain amount of theft, they have 30 years of limitation. For some, 30 years. For some, 10 years, depending on the amount. So, the danger of all those other reports being lying down without action, the statute of limitation is running against government. And so, in the future, when we have a serious government like the Liberal Rebellion Party, sometimes it will become very difficult to prosecute some of those evildoers because the statute of limitation, they have run out. That's the danger I wanted to emphasize on people going to the question here. If you look at that TV I wrote, it was mainly referencing the cohort between the executive and the legislative branch. There is an understanding between both branches that the executive will not ensure that the legislative branch is audited, and at the same time, the legislative branch will do the same. We call that reciprocity in crime. I scratch your back, you scratch my back in layman terms. When you have a cohort between two branches of government, it is a serious problem. That's why I decided to reference an aspect of audit report, lying out the General Auditing Commission, but look at the danger. When audit reports are written, it is submitted to the legislative branch. This is the branch of government that has never been audited. In fact, they have not come up with any law that says the legislative branch can be audited. But who are audited? Only the executive branch. The judiciary do not want to avail themselves to audit as well. The way to solve the problem is to come up with a legislation that all corruptible activities are submitted to the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission. Audits done by the GAC should not be submitted to the legislature. Rather, they go directly to the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission, and it is so good that now we have a law in place where the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission can engage on prosecution or by itself without even going through the Ministry of Justice, and that is very good. So we need a law to be passed to ensure that when audits are done, the audit reports are submitted directly to the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission, and they can begin the process of prosecution immediately, so we don't run the risk of statute of limitation for the government.
Thank you. Madam, how would your administration, this is the same question, how would your administration address impunity for corruption?
So first and foremost is, I think it's important for us to establish something here in terms of corruption. We speak about corruption only from the standpoint of high-level government officials and the executive and legislative branches. But as president and as the leader of an African Liberation League government, we're looking at corruption holistically. Corruption is almost now synonymous with culture, the way we do things. And it permeates our entire society. Very important to share that. It goes into the issue of the school system, the principals, the teachers, and the flexi fee that children are now mandated to pay in order to be allowed to cheat. So I just want to register the issue of corruption is not just about high-level officials, it's about a way of life in Liberia, a way of doing business now that we are normalizing that needs to be corrected, and it has to be addressed across the society. It has to be addressed at the level of civic education, in the schools, it has to be addressed in the marketplaces with the market women who cheating with the Red Cup, the Tinapa Cup, all the way with the police taking bribes, and so forth. The issue of sexual harassment and abuse of authority, those issues within the public sector that actually are part and parcel of corruption networks. So I just want to make sure that we look at it holistically. Having said that, in terms of impunity, we talked about it here earlier in the declaration of assets. The first thing to start off with, if I'm elected president tomorrow, I will ensure that an updated declaration of assets is done by the first day, in terms of the day of inauguration. And everyone appointed to office should be able to declare their assets immediately upon assumption of duties, and no resources will be going under their control without that declaration of their assets. In terms of the roles and responsibility that they have, and the leverage that many have now going with impunity, we have stated in our manifesto very clearly that within the first 100 days, we will have operational a fast-track corruption court. That corruption court will ensure that cases that have been laying wait will be fast-tracked into that court, and that will serve as a deterrent. And the judgment rendered from those cases will be implemented to the fullest. There will be no impunity as it relates to corruption. Again, I shared earlier, it's public enemy number one. The way of life now is corrupt. The way we do business is corrupt. The way we drive from here to go to your house, the corruption along the way is all there. And if we do not set the example from the top, demonstrating that there will be no impunity for corruption, it will continue to permeate. As the leader and as the president, anyone in my administration who's found guilty, who's investigated, and the results are very clear, they will be, of course, they will be fired. And again, the letter of the law will be applied in terms of restitution. There will have to be restitution. We have to ensure that the Liberian people's money is restituted back to them to serve their needs. Last, I want to share with this also very importantly is the fact that I didn't get a chance to talk to this point, but public financial management, all the laws are there. We have all the laws there, but the systems, I won't say the systems are there. The laws are there. But in terms of implementing a full system of accountability, it's not there. And ensuring that we don't just do public expenditure tracking for the sake of looking at how much money was spent, but again, I will continue to stress and enforce the need to link that to results for the Liberian people. What the money should have been spent for, maybe the money was spent, but did it achieve the result it should have achieved? If we don't link this to the results of the Liberian people, access to their rights, and ensuring that we move from this place where we are to actually ensuring services for the people, then we've done nothing. And we can have plenty of reports that say we spent money, we spent it without any corruption, but were the results achieved? Very important. Thank you.
The next question is for you, Mr. Freeman. Allegations of corruption, especially high-level officials, have been widespread. We already spoke about that plentifully. The U.S. government recently has flashed sanctions on high-profile officials of the current administration for corruption. Now, you as president, how will you work with the international community to hold corrupt officials accountable?
Good. So, I started off by saying we focus too heavily on these outcomes. You know, that we've all talked about consistently audit reports. It means audits are taking place. But it means that the audit reports are not being prosecuted. The audit reports don't have legs to walk. It means somebody has to take it to court. An audit report is not in itself a conviction. Lawyers say the weight of evidence. You have to take it to the lawyers, have to look at it and validate it. That's what I said. Let's look at it. How are auditors, how are the leadership, the Board of Commissioners of the Anti-Corruption Commission appointed? I think if people are appointed, yes, by the president, but through a totally different process where the CPA Association of Liberia come together, this other association, accounting come together, legal. So we decide, okay, we want to have 2 lawyers, 2 accountants, CPA or whatever, and the names are submitted to the president, and the appointment is done. It ensures independence. It's that independence that enforces the law. That's why I made sure to try to stress that the laws exist. There is no law that is not on the book. In fact, Liberia passed so much law that during President Barclay's time, he passed a law to move the capital to Banga. When Joe came to power, he passed the same law even though the law was already there. So laws are keep falling over each other. Even with the judiciary, sometimes they rule over rulings that have been made by other courts because these things are not documented. So I want to look at how people will be appointed in the first place. If a president appoints a chief justice, to whom does that chief justice hold loyalty? And how will the chief justice implement these things? You know, so all of these things will be tackled, not because we don't have the laws, but because of the processes that lead to the outcome. The other thing has to do with the issue of asset declaration. That's get tricky. You know, some of the guys that we're talking about today, they are quite elementary in the steel. You can give a man $10 million and he can take that money to a business. He can take that money to a business, and that business, he can take that money to a bank, and that bank can mingle that money with his assets, and you will never know. That same corrupt government official can register an offshore business in Mauritius, and that business registered in Mauritius, who is incorporated by that guy. I'm sure you heard about the Panama Papers. So, you know, we're looking at corruption from an elementary perspective. So even like we're giving the example of funds, somebody that is sophisticated would not have done that. There are a million ways in which corrupt people conduct themselves. That's why we need to look at the system. Do they have corruption globally? Can you isolate it? No, you cannot. So far, there are humans that will be corruption, but you can alleviate corruption significantly. Let's deal with Councillor Gongloe example. When Samuel Doe was president, did he not beat people publicly for corruption? But corruption flourished under his administration. So we have to be practical. When the issue with Liberia is an executive presidency with significant power. If those that are appointed to the Anti-Corruption Commission will only be appointed by the president, maybe on paper, but his election comes from the peers, it means I am serving a 6-year tenure and I have significant authority, and I know a president cannot easily sweep me. Because one, I know that I can work outside. Two, let's take the caliber and quality of the people that have been appointed to lead most of these institutions. Most of them never even had a job before. Most of them, yeah, they may be lawyers, but they never even read a fitting law firm to hire anybody. So the truth is, when they are in those jobs, the guy is more concerned about remaining in the job than being outside of the job. The other thing, I went to one office the other day, and a guy who is a former person with that infrastructure went there. We don't have a retirement infrastructure. A man said, as former chief justice, or former this, former that, absolutely no retirement infrastructure. So in many respects, we incentivize theft in these offices. Coming to the other issue of the, I'm still dealing with some of the other issues that I asked for quickly. I hope.
2 more minutes.
Thank you. So I dealt with the issue of asset declaration. Then let's deal with the issue of fund sourcing. In many countries, there was a case in America where this man, our minister, he increased the price of flour. Worked with a flour company, there was no justification. He was giving an example of increasing the price of work permit to $1,000, for example, when he was Minister of Labor. What was the objective? Was it that $1,000 would be too hard for people to pay to stop people from coming to the country to work? Or was it just to be seen to be doing something? In my mind, I think in other countries, certain actions must be investigated. Mr. Minister, why is this action necessary? Why are you bringing this action up? What's the concept behind these actions? I think when you have a president that understands these dynamics, it helps. But most importantly, all of this discussion about corruption and everything else, it depends largely, in every respect, on the person that becomes president in a country like Liberia, which you can isolate in every respect. If you take a novice and make that novice president, or you take somebody who has a public track record and has not shown any form of performance, or a person that has no history of building anything, it's not going to change anything. Because in every respect, the president of Liberia has significant authority to enforce a lot of these things. So as president, what would I do if my people were accused of corruption? First thing first, for a president to sit and for his people or her people to be accused of corruption, it means there has been significant neglect of deception of corruption that now is being spotted by somebody else. Let's take some of the excesses, that I was seeing that led to some of these actions. What will I do? Don't forget we have laws. The laws of Liberia say a man is not guilty until proven. So the best that could have been done under the past administration, we must all be frank with ourselves, was to dismiss the man. Be that as it may, according to the Liberian laws, unless we change it, nothing could have been done. Having said that, Once we have independent people running these institutions, a man that is minister, a man that is whoever, city mayor, a man that is judge, whoever else that has this, he doesn't even have to have excessive lifestyle. I can show you people here that have millions of dollars and still wear slipper, and they're good at that. I can show you people who have nothing and they're full of air, they move around. So, but if we have systems in place, all right, we have systems in place by the right people in power. Not that we don't have the laws, but the right people in power, those people will have significant independence and they will go after the other people. We must always create conditions so that even if the president wanted to help somebody, even if the president wanted to help his brother, even if the president wanted to help his sister, the guy that has to, prosecute this case must be able to say, Mr. President, I can't help. But when you give too much power, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So let's look at the processes instead of looking at the outcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we move on to Dr. Turner. The same question, what would you do if elected as president to work with the international community for accountability of those accused by them?
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, we need to put some mechanism into place to get corruption to its lowest bare minimum as much as we can. I did a few courses in Singapore. Singapore is one of my case studies. Singapore is a country at the moment that more like zero tolerance for corruption in Singapore. Singapore is just about Liberia's population. 4 million, 5 million people. One stretch of Singapore to the other stretch is 1 hour drive. A very small country. But when it comes to corruption, it cannot work any day, any time, to any individual in Singapore. 4 things responsible. Number 1, political willpower. Number 2, laws. Number 3, adjudication. Number 4, public services. We may not have the time to go into all of this. But one of the things we will do is to enforce strict fines on those that will be found into corrupt practices. Strict fines if it's broken. Those fines must be implemented to the letter. The second thing is that you need to create jail terms. Strictly jail terms that cannot be broken or amended by anyone in the Republic. Not even with executive clemency. These are the things that will transform this country. The next thing I jotted here is make corruption unbailable. Just like we got today, rape is unbailable. Make it unbailable. Simple. As soon as it's practiced and you are caught and it's brought to the books and it's proven, you know that you're on your way. And nobody can bring you out. Nobody can bail you out. There's no discussion about you coming out, no matter your position in government or in society. This should cut across both the public sector and that of the private sector. When it comes to technology, create a technology and put a system in place whereby every funding and financial transaction in this country is monitored by technology. Any amount of money coming into our database system should show a red light if that money cannot be justified, where it's coming from and the source. If you employ technology and you bring out these systems into place, you're not going to be the one as a human being working the system. You put a code there that makes it impossible for a certain amount to enter, or when a certain amount enters, there should be a red light, a red alarm. Immediately we'll track financial transactions in this country, and then we'll bring those things to book. These are the laws and the kind of things that I'm going to bring into play when I'm elected president in this country. When it comes to bringing people to book, honestly, if it's proven that you're a government official or you're anyone that has
those are sanctioned.
Yes. we bring them to book. For example, the other day, I remember one of these guys that are sanctioned called a meeting, and they wanted to meet with someone. And we were like, I mean, this guy's on a sanction. What is he doing even traveling to Ghana? What is he doing traveling to countries around West Africa? I think it all boils down to the fact that government has allowed these sanctioned people to still have a leverage of interaction. That's what we're saying, political willpower. We need to pick these people up, seize their rights, let them know that everything they stole in government that cannot be justified should be brought and confiscated. I know they need to go through court proceedings and the rest of it. Set up a system that will immediately look into the matter and bring the matter to book. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to serve a deterrent to people. So when people do wrong in society and they can still drive the big cars and still have the immunities that they have, even though they're under sanctions, even though they've done wrong and everybody knows that they are corrupt, definitely others will know that practicing corruption, you will still have a freeway. So that's what I'm going to do, bring them to book immediately, yeah.
Thank you. So let me put the last question and you just respond and then we go, no, not the same question. We'll start with persecuting our confidants. The former president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the equipment talked about or the reference the interconnectedness of our country and how it makes it difficult to fight corruption. Do you agree, or will you persecute your confidants and relatives who are found in any corrupt acts once you get elected as president?
I don't agree with them. The President Sirleaf said, oh, well, I want to fire some people, then they call my sister, they call my brother, and the country small. George Weah said, oh, they all say, driver billion, one, that billion, you want to talk. I said, people are not ready to fight corruption. Because what they are saying is that if you're a mother that have one child, you should not chastise that child. That's not true. My role model in terms of that in this country is President Talbot. In 1978, President Talbot executed, signed the death warrant of another person called William Talbot, his nephew, because he killed his wife, and then he was found guilty, and the matter went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court affirmed the judgment. It was dramatic in that I was at the University of Liberia at that time, and he said the president is going to address the nation. We all went in the study room to watch TV. We actually saw President Talbot saying, Bill, you know you are the closest to me in the family. They name you after me. But I took an oath to obey and defend the Constitution and statute laws of Liberia. And one of the laws says that when you kill, you should be hanged. So, but I have authority to pardon you. In your case, I cannot pardon you. The law must prevail. The only thing I can do for you is that as pastor of the Zion Praise Baptist Church of Bensonville, I will pray for God to receive your soul. And on television, he prayed, and after he said, in the name of Jesus Christ, he took the pen and signed, and Bill was crying on television. That was on Thursday. On Friday, the Talbot family went to Central Prison and kept work the whole night. At 5:45, the sheriff came and asked Bill to go to the gallows. He was hanged. He hung there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That is the law. The political will to execute the law. And I can say for a public, I resigned from President Sirleaf government. I was the closest to one in the government because she used to say, Tiawan, these people are a bunch of scary people. One day you and myself went to jail. Our government here. But the people are stealing. I say you brought people into your government who are your family members and friends. You met yourself and bind your relationship. If they steal, you can dismiss them. Talbot signed their warrant to dismiss their wife. That was the problem. Political will that everybody has talked about. The laws are there. as Sinkor from said, the laws are there. The only thing lacking is the political will. People go by expedience and not the law. Every ministry of government is. So when it comes to the international government like sanction people, there is something the law called mutual legal assistance. I will ask the American government to let FBI give the information so that we can prosecute the people. Punishment is the only way to deter people from committing crime. It is a shameful thing that will have people, have officials of the government that are sanctioned. Any country that is sanctioned, your sovereignty is reduced some kind of way. We can say, Madam, let's not talk about corruption in the culture. I don't go to that. Me and one minister disagree on one anti-corruption day. Corruption is everywhere in the church. I said, we're not talking about that one. We are talking about the one that is in our law. We have chapter 12 of the penal law that is against all crimes that affect the integrity of government. That the one we should enforce. We have the code of conduct. We are state party to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. The people in the market inside, the people in the church, the people everywhere, the paper riders inside, the taxi drivers inside. We are not talking about it. We have the OU Convention Against Corruption. We are state party to those. It is no law that should be implemented. And once at the top, they are being implemented. One person from Polo Works told me the other day, why should I tell people to pay a building permit, which is $300, when the president built for the 7-story building opposite Baptist Seminary and did not pay 1 cent for each, did not get permit from Polo Works. So I don't have the courage to ask anybody to that's corruption. Not, circumventing the process. You talk to Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. Somebody, a minister took a vacation with a businessman. He came by and find him. He said, when that businessman does something, what will you do to him? So I say, just in my government, just after, in fact, the reason I'm putting salaries on the internet is that first thing, the people in the community will name and shame you. The man will look at our phone, his salary is less than $50,000. How can he pay him $200,000 in 3 months? They will start building job at your house. When I hear him, I'll fire you, say it to the Labrador Corruption Commission. Just a point that you don't serve, you're not in job, my pleasure anymore. I'll fire you, I'll send you there. If they acquit you, you use the private fund, but you will not be in my government. And when you go there, everything will take it from you. I will sue corruption from the government.
Thank you, so time is running out. Our friend will ask if each of you can respond to the question on how would you handle, or do you believe in the statement because we are interconnected, it's difficult to persecute corruption? No, you already responded to the question.
It's for the rest of us to respond. I fully disagree with Councillor Gongloe. I believe as President of the Republic of Liberia, we should ensure that holistically we address corruption. We should ensure that we comply with all of the laws, we comply with all of the conventions, and at the same time we prepare the younger generation to come into leadership in a way that will be void of those corrupt practices. We must do both. It must be a two-pronged approach. If we only address those who are in government today and we leave the society alone, we are not setting up sustainable systems. We are not setting up sustainable education and approaches that will take Liberia to the 22nd century. So I believe as Liberia's president, I will address it categorically. I will ensure that we address corruption in leadership. We will address corruption at all levels of society, and we ensure that we strengthen civic education so our children who are learning today that corruption is right, they will learn that it is wrong. And so we address the old, the middle age, the youth, and we address the young, and put these systems that will serve the needs of those that are yet unborn. In terms of the sanctions, the discussion on sanctions and so forth, I agree with my colleagues there, where we're talking about the issue of, first of all, our laws here in Liberia and making sure that the information that Councillor Gongloe said, the information that they have, they should give to us so that we address it here locally. our own systems. If they have violated the Liberian law, they should be held accountable in our legal system, in our justice system. But also, there's something wrong with us when we celebrate these things. Again, that's why I say you cannot divorce the issue of our accountability for public office and what happens in the society. The general society says, well, I don't care whether or not they stole money, as long as they're helping me and it is fine for me. There's something wrong with that, and we must address it. If we know for sure there's been corruption, we should reduce the level of relevance people have if it's been tried with our laws. If we know for sure it's a fact, we should be able to reduce the level of relevance. I would not want to speak to individuals here or speak to particular cases here, but as a people, we should not celebrate these practices, we should not celebrate these things, and we should partner with the international community, work with the international community to ensure that we apply the Liberian laws to these people as well.
Yes, please, Councillor Bongo has a pressing. Yeah.
No problem. So, my sister, you disagree with me for nothing. Because if me and my brother and my family put on an estate, and cheating and eating the money, that corruption there, other administrators are doing all that one. The one that we're really concerned about, when in public service, the post that first, if the president doesn't steal, half of the ministers will steal. I worked with government before. Minister ain't steal, the controller, then the auditor, then the procurement director, the deputy minister of administration, all of them are scared to steal. I can say this. My deputy minister of administration said, I served 3 ministers, but under the one, it was hard to eat. You know, so it comes from the top, then gradually it will go down. But all those things, like just like we have law and there's no political will, you can write all the things. If the principal of the school does not follow the law, I'm leaving. If the principal of the school, if the principal of the school, the government appoint them, that comes to work on time and he's taking money from even the teachers who stay away and all of that, that government coming down. You said something about lack of supervision, compliance. What is that government function? Everything flows from government. If it is not good there, then you can, because usually they excuse that government, well, we have the argument plenty now. Oh, corruption is impossible. Nobody can fight corruption because it's part of our culture. Let's not agree with them, water it down to that level. When they say, everybody corruption in the church, in the club, in the social club, in the classroom, I agree with that.
We must deal with all of it, top to bottom.
Thank you, Councillor Tiawan Saye.
Don't come back and floor with you.
So, if each one of you, 50 seconds, 30 seconds.